Let the House please be in order. Stand as we are led in prayer today. The gentleman from Rankin, Representative Weathersby, will introduce our guest minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored today to have my pastor from the First Baptist Church in Florence to deliver the prayer this afternoon, Brother Sam Taylor.
Would you pray with me? Father, we're thankful for the opportunity to be gathered today in this great house. God, to do business is so important for the many members of the state of Mississippi. God, I pray for these legislators today that they would experience guidance of your wisdom. God, that they would be aware of the work that they're doing, the importance of it, the impact that it has on so many. God, that they'd be guided by your hand as they do that work, to do it in a way that would bring goodness into the lives of the people that they seek to serve and represent. God, I pray a blessing upon them, upon their families, and upon their work. And God, that you would continue to help us as a state to be built on laws that are represented by the truth of your word. And God, when so many others are drifting away from you, to cling closely to the word that the laws of our country and state are built upon. And God, as we do so, we pray your blessing among this house and the members it represents. God, we thank you for this opportunity and your many great blessings upon all of our lives, our country, and this state. God, we love you and trust you. Praise things in your name. Amen.
Will you join me in the pledge? Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the machine, Madam Clerk. Close the machine, Madam Clerk.
There's a quorum present, Mr. Speaker.
We'll have the reading of the journal. Gentleman from Rankin. Gentleman from Rankin moves we dispense with the reading of the journal. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. The ayes have it. Report of select committees.
We have none, Mr. Speaker.
Report of standing committees.
We have reports on the calendar, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of bills and constitutional amendments. Gentleman from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading of the introductions.
Is there objection to this? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, we will follow that procedure. Resolutions, petitions, memorials, and other papers.
We have none, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of guests and visitors. Gentleman from Copiah, Mr. Holloway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you would direct your attention to the North Gallery. Today we have a very special guest, an honoree here, the tall lady of soul, Lady V, 6'3", radio broadcaster for over 50 years, and her entourage is here today. And Pastor Hollins, and we'll be honoring her very shortly. Thank you.
Welcome. Lady from Forest, Ms. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor to welcome our doctor of the day today back to the Capitol, Dr. Anita Henderson, my dear friend from, she is a pediatrician with Hattiesburg Clinic and the immediate past president of the Mississippi chapter of the Academy of the American Academy of Pediatricians. She brings with her today her better half, my also dear friend, Dr. Randy Henderson, who is a neonatologist with South Mississippi Neonatology, and together they do wonderful things and care so much for babies and children in Mississippi. And they also have 4 medical students with them, 3 of which are students at the University of Mississippi Medical School and 1 from William Carey Medical School. So would you please help me welcome all of them and thank Dr. Henderson for her service.
Gentleman from Itawamba, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce the youth court judge from Lee County, Mississippi, and a friend of mine and one of my constituents, Miss Stacy Bevel. She's in the South Gallery.
Welcome, Judge. Gentleman from Lee, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to have the youth court judge, Judge Stacy Bevel, just to introduce her once again, Stan, and we just want to welcome you to the Capitol.
Lady from Madison.
Mr. Speaker, and in the South Gallery, another youth court judge, my youth court judge, Judge Stacy O'Neill. Welcome to the Capitol. And also in the South Gallery, my grandchildren's babysitter, Carrie Lynn Stevens, and she's also a fellow with the Child Health and Development Program at the UMMC. But most importantly, she babysits my grandchildren. So welcome, Carrie Lynn.
Gentleman from Lamar, Mr. McCarty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the House please help me welcome in the South Gallery the fellows of the Mississippi Thrive Child Health Development Project. They're here for their first annual Capitol Day, and I'm going to introduce them all. We got Amanda Ward, Elena Calderon, Connor Beth Fudge, Carrie Lynn Stevens, Jill Ford's babysitter as well, Valencia Wilson, Dr. Courtney Walker, Dr. Rachel Tyrone, and of course, Dr. Susan Buttress, who's the director of the project. They're also joined by Dr. Casey Stratton Gadke of TK Martin and their Mississippi Thrive pediatrician, which is Dr. Ruth Patterson. Y'all please help me make them welcome and be sure to visit them in this rotunda today.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Stamps.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, would you please draw your attention to the North Gallery? There's a young man up there who's walking away, Mr. Rob J. Rob, come on, step outside here and recognize him. He's make him feel welcome because he's always behind the scenes all the time. But I want to recognize Mr. Rob J. And we also have another young lady in North Gallery, Miss Shell B. How you doing, Michelle? There you go.
Gentleman from Montgomery, Mr. Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, in the South Gallery, we have joining us today 4 of the hardest working ladies in the state of Mississippi with Camp Kamasa. We'd like to welcome them. They are the cookie makingest ladies that I know of. If y'all would please stand. We have with us today Miss Tamara, Elise, and Mary, and I believe Isla. Am I pronouncing that correctly? We're glad to have y'all with us. Please help me make them welcome.
Gentleman from Jones, Mr. Scoggin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce in the North Gallery Mr. Randy Smith and Miss Amanda Mills, both from Jones County and Dixie Electric Power Association, and they'll be at the Cooperative Energy tonight cooking steak. Thank y'all.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to help me make welcome my good friend and church member, Miss Christiana Houston. Please stand and make her feel welcome. Thank you.
We're glad to have all of our visitors here today. Welcome to your capital. I believe the gentleman from Oktibbeha, Chairman of Rules, we have a special guest. He's going to help introduce from the well. Gentlemen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest here today, and I would ask the Madam Clerk would read a portion of the resolution, House Resolution number 55.
A resolution commending Ms. Verbia Cooper Harden for her outstanding career in radio broadcasting. Whereas throughout her extraordinary career, Ms. Verbia Cooper Harden has been committed to providing excellent radio broadcasting to her listeners. And whereas Ms. Harden, better known in radio land as Lady V, 6'3" Lady V and the Tall Lady of Soul, is currently a radio personality on WKXI 107.5 FM, and is also a Jackson, Mississippi native and a mother of 2. And even though she does not look like it, she has 11 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. And whereas a longtime veteran of Jackson Radio for over 50 years, Ms. Harden's listeners have enjoyed her laid-back style and pleasant personality. And whereas Ms. Harden began her career in radio by becoming a secretary at WOKJ, and she started working on air as a weekend announcer and eventually became a full-time personality. And whereas though she never dreamed of becoming a radio announcer, Ms. Harden believes that God chose her for the position, and she feels blessed to have a job that she enjoys getting up to go to. And whereas Ms. Harden has received many awards and recognitions, however, her main focus is to put a smile on someone's face that may be feeling down for whatever reason. And whereas Ms. Harden tries to help listeners through their workday mornings with the morning stretch, something that she started many years ago and continues today, and she has stated that it amazes her when she sees listeners and they say they have been listening to her show since they were kids, and now they are grown with children of their own. And whereas it is the policy of the House of Representatives to commend exceptional Mississippians, especially those such as Ms. Harden, whose dedication to her listeners brings honor to the state of Mississippi. Now therefore be resolved by the House of Representatives of the state of Mississippi that we do hereby commend Ms. Verbia Cooper Harden for her outstanding career in radio broadcasting and express our most sincere wishes for continued success in all her future endeavors.
Congratulate her, ladies and gentlemen.
We will go to the calendar. Chairman Rose, do you wish to take up any items?
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, if we could go to items number 2 and 3, these are 2 SCRs. Take those up in a block. That's SCR number 547 and SCR number 548.
Is there objection to either of these? Don't see any. If you open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the resolutions, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 116 yeas, 0 nays, the resolutions are adopted. Next item, gentlemen.
Thank you. If we could go to items number 4 and number 5, HR number 85 and HR number 86. These are resolutions for the Government Southern Office and commended on the occasion of their 77th Southern Legislative Conference, and the other is a Eleanora Littleton commend for leadership.
Gentleman calls these 2 items up in a block, HR 85 and HR 86. If there's no objection, we'll proceed with that. If you favor the resolutions, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Resolutions are adopted. Anything further, gentlemen?
Immediate release on those, and I also wanted to, since we're dealing with this on HR number 85, the Council of State Governments Southern Office folks are here in the North Gallery, I believe. If y'all would stand up so we can, South Gallery, I'm sorry, stand up.
There they are. Welcome.
Thank y'all for being here. Congratulations. Immediate release.
Mr. Chairman, I think I see up there Lindsey Gray, Executive Director, Ann Brody, Policy Director, Cody Allen is the Policy Analyst, and Jenny Guadalupe, Communications Associate. Thank y'all for being here. Motion to reconsider calendar. Any chairman have an item there they wish to handle? Don't see any. We will go appropriations calendar. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We would go to item 1, House Bill 1702. Call that bill up, make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time and placed on final passage. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
I would next move that we table the committee substitute.
Chairman moves that we table the committee sub. If you're in favor of the gentleman's motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're back on the bill, gentlemen.
I have an amendment.
You are recognized to explain the amendment.
The amendment is just a reverse repealer.
You want to adopt the amendment?
Please.
Question occurs to the adoption of amendment number 1. If you favor the amendment, indicate saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment's adopted.
Just a brief explanation of the bill. This is the sales tax. This is a sales tax exemption for the Mississippi Book Festival. It just would provide sales tax exemptions for that weekend that the book festival is hosted here. And my understanding is it also includes other places, other bookstores in the state during that limited time frame. That's an explanation of the bill.
Gentleman from Covington, Mr. Sanford, for what purpose? You have an amendment?
Yes.
You're recognized to explain your amendment,
Thank
gentleman.
you, Mr. Speaker. Real briefly, this just adds the Veterans Outreach Organization. That's an organization that has chapters in all 4 of our veterans' homes. There's 0 people on payroll, 0 salaries, 0 per diem. Every penny they raise goes to buy medical equipment if it's not covered by the VA, dentures, all that stuff. So appreciate your support.
Chairman wish to respond.
I have no objection to the amendment.
Question occurs on the adoption of amendment number 2. If you favor the gentleman's amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment's adopted. Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Move final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. We're going to change the short title, gentlemen, with that amendment. Let's suspend business for one quick moment while we do that. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Is everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 117 yeas, 0 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I was just informed that item 2, Senate Bill 2647, they are, the brains behind this bill are still working on an amendment. There's some language they're trying to get right. And so as we move to the general calendar, I would ask that we may need to come back to the Ways and Means when that language comes today, if it does indeed come. So we yield at this time.
Yes, sir. We'll proceed in that fashion. General calendar. Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Haney.
Introduction out of order. With the behalf of the Coast delegation, we'd like to welcome the Coast Electric folks in the North Gallery, Ron Barnes, Scott Brown, John Holston, Bruce Marie, and Guy Johnson. Welcome to the Capitol.
Chairman of Elections, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to call up item number 1, Senate Bill 2352. Have the gentleman from DeSoto County explain the bill.
Gentlemen, you make the usual motion?
Yes, sir.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlemen, you're recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, what we have before us is basically House Bill 1306, which we passed by over 100 votes earlier this session. Just to give you a quick rundown again, just to familiarize you with it, on line 97 through 100, this bill comes to us by way of the Secretary of State's office, and it just says that candidates are required to file the proper paperwork. If applicable, a candidate must be current in the last 5 years of their campaign finance reports. And then on lines 149 through 151, it says it's going to basically take and treat judges the same way we're treated when it comes to reporting after an election year. During an election year, you have to do your periodic reports, and at the end of the year, you do a report on the 31st. This just exempts them, just like us, from having to do a follow-up annual report the year after the election. And it has a reverse repealer in it as well. And I yield for any questions.
Questions on the strike all? I don't see any questions on the strike all. I don't see anybody requesting amendments. After the adoption of the strike all, that will end all amendments. So I don't see any. Gentlemen, you move adoption of the strike all amendment number 1?
Yes, sir.
If you favor the adoption of strike all amendment 1, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Strike all is adopted. Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 81 yeas, 36 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to go to item number 2, Senate Bill number 2353, and make the usual motions.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read a third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're recognized, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 2353, we've done a strike all, and we put our language back into it, which is House Bill 552. What this deals with is a pay increase for the poll workers on the day of the elections, raise it up to $150. And then if the person picking up the ballot box will receive an extra $30. It also goes in here to where we have poll worker training, raises their pay to $20. That's the explanation of the bill. I yield the question.
That's an explanation of the strike all amendment,
sorry,
which
yes.
I think is the bill. Questions? I don't see any, gentlemen. Gentleman moves adoption of the strike all amendment. If you favor the amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Move final passage.
Chairman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 113 yeas, 5 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to go to item number 3, Senate Bill 2358, make the usual motions.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're recognized, gentlemen.
I'd like to call a gentleman up from Pearl River to explain the bill.
Gentleman from Pearl River, are you offering an amendment? Gentleman from Pearl River is going to explain the committee amendment, amendment number 1.
Thank you. The committee amendment simply fixes a clerical error, striking an asterisk and replacing it with a 2. That's the explanation of the amendment. I move for passage.
Are there questions on the amendment? No question on the amendment. Gentleman moves adoption of Amendment 1. If you favor the amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment's adopted.
All right,
Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Yes, I need to explain the bill, Mr. Speaker. And for those of you who didn't hear me about the amendment, it just replaced an asterisk with the number 2. It was a clerical error. This bill is an act to prohibit ballot harvesting in the state of Mississippi. A person shall not knowingly collect and transmit a ballot that has been mailed to another person unless you're an election official while engaged in your official duties, you're an employee of the U.S. Postal Service, or an employee of an organization otherwise authorized by law to send mail, and unless you're a family member or a common carrier. Any violation of this section shall be subject to the penalties of Section 97-13-37. That is an explanation of the bill, and I'll yield for any questions.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines. For what purpose?
Question, Mr. Speaker.
You're recognized.
Gentleman, you.
Yes, sir.
So, gentlemen, if my neighbor is limited in capacity and I wanted to take his ballot and mail it, I couldn't do this under this law?
You cannot, unless you're your neighbor's caregiver.
So, have we had issues with this? Are you aware? Can you quote some instances where this has been an issue for us in this state?
Instances where people have taken
I'm
ballots
just
and mailed
asking
it?
why a neighbor can't take care of a neighbor? Or is this an instance to keep people from, it appears that this piece of legislation is to stop people from participating in absentee ballot and all this stuff.
No, this legislation, I believe, is aimed at maintaining the integrity of the election process. Just like chain of custody and criminal prosecutions, you want a good chain of custody on a ballot. We can't have ballots floating around once that a voter has voted that ballot floating around between different hands.
So that goes back to my previous question. Can you give us some instances where this has been an issue, where someone has been arrested or someone has caused some issue with this particular matter? Can you present that to us?
It is not a crime right now, so there are not public instances, but I can think of instances in own elections that I have worked where individuals have went around neighborhoods collecting ballots or went to locations throwing ballots in the back of the truck to bring them to the courthouse for people. Yes, I can think of that, and I know many of my colleagues in here can also tell you examples themselves of this. So yes, there are examples.
If this is happening, does the Secretary of State have a listing of people and places where this is taking place? Can you give us some documented proof other than just your opinion or your viewpoint? Can you give us any documented proof that this happened other than you just saying it happened?
No, I don't have a list. I have a list of election fraud cases with me, though, if you'd like me to read through that. It's pretty thick.
Okay, well then start with it.
All right, there we go. June 2021, let's see. In the Aberdeen First Ward Alderman election, Judge Jeff Will overturned the results of that election due to absentee ballot fraud. He actually ordered a new election. It looks like Mr. Dallas Jones was arrested for notarizing ballots without watching voters actually sign those ballots.
So
in 2019, can I finish, please?
No.
You told me to read the list.
So, gentlemen, I specifically asked you earlier, did you have any instances where this was a problem? And you said no.
Yes, and I
asked you, did you have any documented cases where this has happened and take place? And you said no. And then you are now presenting some. So apparently, there seems to be some form of confusion around this particular issue. So I'm going back to my previous question. Can a neighbor assist their neighbor under this particular piece of legislation in voting? Can a neighbor take someone's ballot who is sick or incapacitated and mail it or drop it off at the courthouse under this particular message?
No, unless your neighbor is a caregiver, no.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Banks.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, would you yield for me for a few questions?
Yes, sir.
I see here in section D, you have a family member, household member, caregiver, or the person with the ballot was male. How about someone with the power of attorney for someone?
I didn't hear what
How
you
about
said.
someone with the power of attorney for someone? If I have the power of attorney for someone, you tell me I cannot touch that mail or touch that ballot, but I can touch all the other mail and all the other activities, but I can't touch the ballot.
I feel like if you have a power of attorney over someone, I would consider that a caregiver. I'm sure as this bill moves through the process.
I don't think a power of attorney is a caregiver. I think a caregiver is like physical care, mental care, health care. I don't think a power of attorney is health care.
Okay. then,
Caregiver. So are you going to change it? You going to put an amendment in here to change that?
No.
'Cause I see. You're not.
I don't. Do you want an amendment in this? That's fine. If you want to clear that up and write up an amendment, we'll throw that in there.
Okay. I don't know if I have time to do it, but anyway.
I think you'll have plenty of time. I feel like there'll be more
Okay,
questions.
but I'm just saying to you, somebody write it. Now, the gentleman from Washington asked you, were there any other situations that you actually knew of where this has happened? But in dealing with this, I just see that, you know, we have situations where neighbors, friends of the family, somebody's out of town, they pick up the mail. Well, they inadvertently pick up a ballot. You saying they committed a crime?
Inadvertently picked up a ballot?
Yeah, you know, you say like, hey, I'm out of town, pick up my mail out the mailbox while I'm traveling for a week on vacation. And the ballot's in the mail. They pick up all the mail, including the ballot. They've committed a crime? John, you writing that up for me? Oh. Okay, what person you got? No. Do you have me?
Yeah, I'm following you. So you're saying if somebody gets the ballot out of the mailbox and brings it to the person?
Now, all the mail, which includes the ballot,
Mm-hmm.
they've committed a crime under this. Is that right?
Well, they have to collect and then transmit it. It's not just about collecting it. I would say you probably could be in a position where, yes, if you're getting a ballot and you're giving it to anyone that's not your ballot, that's probably problematic.
So anybody who picks up somebody's mail and has a ballot, they committed a crime. Have we looked at the federal law on mail transmittal? Have we looked at federal law on mail transmittal? Transmission of mail and federal law concerning the transmission of mail?
I'm not aware of anybody looking at federal law with this bill. This came from the
Thank you,
Senate.
sir. Thank you.
Gentleman from Madison, Mr. Blackman, for a question.
Gentleman Yale,
Yes, sir.
where did this, the idea for this bill start from?
I believe this came from the Secretary of State.
Secretary of State asked for this bill?
Yes, that's correct.
Did anybody ask what was the basis for it other than something the Secretary of State might be wishing for?
Did anybody what?
Anybody look into the reasoning behind his request?
I believe the reasoning as far as the Secretary of State is concerned, and I can't speak for him, but he does run our elections, is that he doesn't want ballots being picked up by individuals and transmitted, because once it leaves the hands of the voters, you don't know what happens with it before it gets to the courthouse.
Leave it in the hands of the voter?
Once it leaves the hands of the voter who executed the ballot, and you're not, an official that's, protecting that ballot, there's concern that someone going around and picking up a bunch of ballots could, attack the integrity of the election process and kind of make people have less faith in, okay, did those ballots get changed between point A and point B?
Don't we already have a harvesting statute?
Don't we already have a what?
A harvesting statute.
I asked counsel a moment ago. She said this is not currently.
We did something years ago regarding collecting of ballots, wholesale and deposit them either in the mail or the clerk's office.
I'm not aware of one. I did just ask her before we started this bill, and she said that there wasn't,
Well,
a current
I can
law,
assure
but
you, I can
there might be
assure
something.
we did pass it. I can tell you the individual who spurred it on, but I won't call his name now. But gentlemen, have you considered that you're now creating a situation where elections, which are already difficult to get through sometimes, where every ballot is subject to challenge, where you'll have to present evidence that the ballot was deposited with the clerk in the mail without the assistance of someone who is not authorized to make that assistance?
I believe the point of this bill is simply, from what I understand, to make sure that our voters have faith in the ballots that are being sent through the mail. We have a mail-in ballot system here for absentee voters. We want to make sure that we're not putting these ballots in the hand of individuals and making our voters have less faith in those ballots once they get to the courthouse.
Well, gentlemen, the only people who don't have faith in the ballot seems to be one party. And I've not seen any evidence. You tell me what other evidence you have that is a problem that needs to be addressed with this legislation, other than what you said with Judge Will's ruling, which had nothing to do with ballot harvesting. It had to do with errors in witnessing ballots, fraudulent witnesses ballots, correct?
Yes, and I asked the gentleman if he wanted me to read a list of other election fraud cases, because prior to today, the statement was made that there are no examples of election fraud happening in the state, and I just had this here for us repeating it. So he told me to read it.
Isn't the question not whether or not there's fraud, whether or not there's a problem with what you're trying to address in this legislation? That's the issue. What cases can you cite for us where this has been a problem?
There are cases that that people have heard about all over the country of election harvesting occurring.
In Mississippi?
I believe there was an incident in South Mississippi at one point. Was it Hattiesburg? In Hattiesburg, where a supporter of a particular candidate went and picked up a bunch of ballots from one location and tried to deliver them, and that election ended up being challenged, and it was a whole mess.
How long ago was that?
2015 or 14.
That's about the time that I think we addressed that down here in this in the legislature, because there was an issue in Knoxville County that was a problem. But gentlemen, I will submit to you, and I want to know if you agree with this, that this legislation, if it becomes law, is going to make every ballot that hits the clerk's office subject to a challenge whereby the voter will have to prove that this ballot his or her ballot was cast legally, handed to a person who was authorized by statute to deposit that ballot either in the mail or in the clerk's office.
I might not necessarily disagree with you, but it's about protecting our elections, and we've got to keep a good record of where our votes are going and coming from.
Do you think we need voter intimidation and voter suppression as a means to protect the election?
No, sir.
Well, this is exactly what this bill will do.
I disagree, but we'll move on to the next question.
Oh, the next question is, have you yourself been involved in election challenges over the years?
I have been involved in those before, yes, sir.
Over this issue?
Not over this issue, no. Well, no, it wasn't over this issue. It was over absentee ballots, but it was not over this particular issue.
You never had to stay up all night where every absentee ballot was challenged for one reason or another, have you?
I don't think I've been practicing as long as you. I'm sure one day I'll have to do that. And I probably don't work as hard as you, I guess.
Well, I'm going to call you the next time.
Call me, I'll come help you. Learn a little something.
Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Zuber, for an introduction out of order.
Mr. Speaker, I would like for you and the other members of the House to please help make welcome in the North Gallery the banker for the city of Ocean Springs and a great community leader, Mr. Greg Cronin.
Welcome, gentlemen. Gentleman from Jefferson, Mr. Harness, for a question.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, of course.
Gentlemen, do you think that this bill is going to somehow handicap not only, well, you intend this bill for people to this bill is for people that intend to perpetrate voter fraud, right?
I didn't write this bill. I'm assuming that the author of this bill, that was their intent. That's what my assumption is.
Okay, so my question is, do you believe that this bill, don't you think this bill will handicap all the voters in this state in some type of way?
I don't think it's hard to mail a ballot. If you put a ballot in the mailbox, that's a very simple way of getting your ballot to the courthouse.
Okay, and what group is this bill, are you trying to protect, other than you say voters, but is there a group that you're targeting in this bill?
No, sir. Again, I didn't write the bill. I'm not aware of any group that's being targeted by this legislation.
Okay, you're presenting the bill.
Right.
So you're interpreting the bill so that we can understand it. Is that correct?
Right. And I'm only working off the black letters on the page. I don't know of any group that's being targeted by it.
So you don't know the policy behind the bill that you're presenting?
I understand the policy, but I'm not aware of any
Well, then
groups.
tell me the policy. That's what I'm asking you. Do you think that this bill will in some way handicap individual voters across the state?
Again, I disagree. It's very easy to place the ballot in the mailbox.
Okay. I have
Which
another
is
question.
allowed.
I have another question for you.
Okay.
How many bubbles come out of a bar of soap?
I have no clue.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Bailey, for a question.
Gentlemen, are you aware that in several states, people don't have to go to the ballot, to the precinct to vote? They can vote by computer. They can vote through the mail without any problem whatsoever.
I did not know they could vote. I know that you can vote by computer, I think, in Mississippi if you're military or overseas, but I wasn't aware that that was widespread in another state.
Well,
No,
in the
sir.
state of Oregon, you can vote by computer. And I think Utah, several other states, they make it easy for people to vote. But in Mississippi, it appears that we try to make it very hard for people to vote in this state. Well, other states are making it easy. We try to make it hard for people. And we've always made it hard. But let me ask you this question.
Yes, sir.
What is the penalty that you are going to impose on somebody who accidentally pick up a ballot in the mail to deliver it to the circuit clerk's office or a person that is voting by absentee? What's the penalty?
So if you accidentally do something like that, you're not going to be.
Well, what's the
charged with
penalty
this crime.
if you intentionally pick it up?
You have to knowingly collect the ballot.
All right,
The
what's the penalty?
Is conviction, be imprisoned in the county jail not more than 1 year, or fine not more than $3,000, or both.
So we're making it a felony.
Yeah, yes, sir.
We're making more felonies so we can put more people in jail and more private prisons and giving them records so they cannot vote going forward in the future. Is that right? If they get convicted of this particular crime?
I do not believe this would be a disenfranchising crime, but if you do violate it,
You
would
don't
go to
know
jail.
that. Are you aware that the Attorney General on his own expanded that list and added some 19 other crimes that were not in the Constitution?
Yes, sir, I am aware, but since this is a new crime, he hasn't had time to do that. He very well could.
And of course, the Attorney General could do that, couldn't he?
Yes, sir.
Or her? Yes, sir. Thank you. I want to speak on this bill.
Gentleman from Lawrence, Mr. Evans, for a question.
Thank you, Speaker. Gentleman Yield.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to begin by asking you a couple of lawyer-to-lawyer questions. It's a very short bill, doesn't have any definitions really in it. Could you tell me what your definition of transmit is?
Transmit to me is picking up and delivering from one place to another.
Okay, so from a person's hand to a mailbox or to the clerk's office or wherever else you could do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's your definition, but you would agree with me that that's not a definition set forth in the statute, is it?
Not in this bill. I tried to quickly find a definition a minute ago, but I couldn't find one. I'm not sure.
I understand. Like I say, lawyer to lawyer, this is a good defense lawyer bill, isn't it? With ambiguity like that in it.
A lot of ambiguity, yes, sir.
Certainly there
Agree
is.
with that.
And let me go from there. You have 5 exceptions to the bill.
Okay. We need one.
You have 5 exceptions that will allow the collection and transmission.
Yes, sir.
Who and how, who's going to decide whether you're under an exception, and how are you going to prove, if you're the one trying to transmit, that you are indeed come under one of the exceptions?
Well, if the state's charging with this crime, the burden is going to be on the state to prove that you don't meet one of the exceptions. And then the defense will be on you to decide, prove that you are a caregiver or a family member or a household member or any of these individuals named here. But I do agree with you as the ambiguity. And I agree with some of the points made by the gentleman out here to this bill, and they're working up a reverse repealer on this bill, so we need to clear some stuff up. As this goes through the process, probably send it to conference.
Okay, the reverse repealer to give you an opportunity to fix some of the stuff that's been questioned.
Some of
right?
these questions are very good points, and I understand where they're coming from on, for instance, the neighbor situation. I don't think that's the intent of this legislation, so we should probably tighten that language up a bit. I agree with that.
Okay. Under the way it's written now, if I were to take one of my son's ballots to the clerk's office and turn it in, and they accepted it because they probably know who I am, and they wouldn't question me. But is it up to them to question if they don't know it, or is it required that they question every ballot that's turned in to them?
That's not in this bill. I'm assuming that would be a regulation or some sort of training. Going back to the gentleman earlier who mentioned the prior legislation, I used to work in the circuit clerk's office, and when I worked in the clerk's office, if we mailed a ballot, we did not allow it to be hand delivered. So I'm not sure if that's changed since then, or what the rules are as to hand delivering a ballot to the clerk's office. But yeah, I mean, it would be subject to interpretation and ultimately training and all of that.
Which makes it a really good lawyer money-making bill, doesn't it?
Well, probably.
Sir, and I know you're a lawyer, and I am too, and you're going to have to admit that now. Now, I'll let you know that.
I can admit this will be
You can't
some
weasel
motions.
on this now.
Right.
But I appreciate your answers.
We're going to put a reverse repealer in this bill, and we're going to talk to the gentlemen who've expressed concerns and try to tighten this language up.
Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Hullum.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
You worked elections, correct?
Yes, sir.
You worked at the circuit clerk's office, correct?
Yes, sir.
Quick question. Person there that's in jail, haven't been convicted, doesn't they have the right to vote?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
How does they vote?
How do they vote?
Yes.
They can vote absentee.
That's right. That's only how they can vote, because you're not going to take someone out of jail to go down and vote.
That's correct.
So, on that same notion, when a person in jail haven't been convicted, do they have to get the sheriff or somebody in the sheriff's office or mail or somebody a power of attorney?
No, sir, not that
They
I'm
don't,
aware
right?
of, no.
So if they're exercising their right to vote, because they're duly constitutional right to vote, and they try to mail their vote, how do we know they're not getting penalized because we're going to send this bill up there saying somebody else carried their vote? You see what I'm saying?
Who's not going to be penalized, though?
I'm just making sure you understand what I'm saying. Making sure they're not being penalized because someone else got to carry their absentee ballot for them, correct?
I see that. That's a very good point, and that's why we're putting this reverse repealer in the bill. That's a very good point. That's something we need to address.
All right, my next question. Are you familiar with the Gulf Coast? I know you are because you're
Yes,
from
sir.
Perkins Region. So what is the largest population of veterans on the Gulf Coast?
I believe it's in Harrison County.
That's right. Full of what? Veterans.
That's correct.
Mostly disabled veterans.
Yes, sir.
Who is handicapped. Some of them is financially strapped. A lot of them is homeless. So when their people go out to assist them, they'll be charged because they does not fall under one of the 5 pillars that were set forth.
Assist them as far as helping them do the voting, or assist them as far as being their caregiver? Is that
No, assisting them as far as taking their vote out, not being a caregiver. Because a lot of things come with being a caregiver. It's more than just collecting their mail, collecting their funds.
Yes, sir.
So, and last but not least, do you think it's high time that we get more people to vote for free and fair elections in the state of Mississippi, instead of making more penalties to reduce the voting population and increase our prison population? Because on that it states that you can be jailed or fined.
Yes, sir. I agree we need to get more people to vote, absolutely. I also believe we have to make sure we're maintaining the trust in our election system. So it's
Okay.
a balancing act.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Gentleman's motion is to table. Those opposed have 5 minutes.
We would ask that you oppose the motion to table.
You're recognized, gentlemen.
One thing that the gentleman brought up, I support the motion to table. A lot of people don't know this, but the gentleman from Harrison brought up a great point. The biggest population, the largest population of people who will be aggrieved by this measure are people with disabilities. The American Disabilities Act constantly finds instances where people with disabilities are restricted in their right to vote. 11%.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Only those opposed have 5 minutes to the motion. I'm sorry, I messed up. Anything further, Mr. Chairman? Your time's still running.
Nothing further.
Okay, the question now recurs on the motion to table. If you're in favor of the gentleman's motion to table, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Noes have it. The noes have it. Roll call is demanded. There is sufficient number. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the gentleman's motion to table, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 41 yeas, 77 nays, the motion to table fails. Back on the bill, gentlemen. Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Introduction out of order.
You're recognized.
Thank you. In the North Gallery, on behalf of myself, Representative Bugsby, and Representative Barton, I'd like to introduce the mayor of the River City of Moss Point, Mayor Billy Knight. Also, on behalf of the Jackson County delegation, I'd like to welcome our CEO and President of the Jackson County Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Paige Roberts.
Welcome to you both. We are back on the bill, gentlemen. Gentleman from Jefferson, Mr. Harness. You're recognized for a question.
Gentlemen, will you yield?
Yes, sir.
Can you recite the Constitution, the Bill of Rights of the Constitution?
Can I recite it?
Yeah.
I cannot recite it verbatim, no, sir.
You can't?
Yeah.
How many jelly beans is in a jar of jelly beans? How many jelly beans is in there?
I don't eat jelly beans.
Gentleman from Adams, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, as I was about to talk about, I want to ask you a question. You familiar with the Americans with Disabilities Act? I mean, not the whole text, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
And they have statistics in that, with that agency that talk about people with disabilities and their frustration and their inability to vote, not because of any laws, but just because of their physical restrictions and otherwise. That wouldn't be, you would agree with me that those kind of issues may exist.
Definitely, yes, sir.
And so, are you aware that that the people with disability, 11% of the disability population have reported that they, not because of laws, but they are faced with extreme difficulty in voting just because of their disability? Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, what I would suggest to you, no, I won't suggest it. What I would ask of you, in a situation as the gentleman talked about from Harrison County, a person with a disability who may not need a caregiver, who may not have any family members present, but wants to have their ballot delivered, but maybe they missed the mailbox. Right now, they can have a friend or a neighbor take that ballot and take it to the courthouse for them.
Isn't that right?
I believe so, yes, sir.
But under this bill, they would not be able to. And under this proposed legislation.
That's probably correct, and I don't think that should be the case. We should
Right.
probably
And
fix
so
that.
you would agree with me that that is another instance of something we need to work on.
That is correct,
All right,
absolutely.
thank you.
Gentleman from Tallahatchie, Mr. Reynolds.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you coming before this House and the work that you do. You mentioned you work for the circuit clerk. You know, when you're reading off those lists of names, gentlemen, isn't it true you don't read off very many names of circuit clerks or employees of circuit clerks being involved in voter fraud? Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I think maybe there's one instance in this whole stack.
And gentlemen, you know, are you aware that this House, I think under Chairman Denny in the last couple of terms, passed a bill that would make us somewhat like Arkansas, Tennessee, and Louisiana, and let people vote more at the circuit clerk office a few days before the election, rather than having so much absentee ballot and proliferation as we have now. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Would you, when you go into your work, look at the work of Chairman Denny and others on that issue, and also the work in other states? Gentlemen, I visited the office in Arkansas where they did it, and also in Tennessee and Louisiana, and others have too. And gentlemen, it seems to work and cut down on voter fraud if they vote in person in the circuit. Wouldn't that be the most safe thing of all? If somebody was going to do something other than on election day, they vote in that circuit clerk's office under auspices of that office.
I agree with you, and I've actually authored that legislation 2 years, and every time the lady from Hines presents her amendments to bring that to the table, I vote for it. So I agree with you.
Gentlemen, would you please consider that, working with the circuit clerks and others to try to enhance opportunities and lessen fraud?
Absolutely.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Brown.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman yield?
No, sir. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to lay bill subject on, lay it on the table subject to call.
Thank you.
Chairman's motion is to lay the bill on the table subject to call. If you favor the gentleman's motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. House is not voting. The House is not voting. If you favor the gentleman's motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Roll call is demanded. There is insufficient number. Chairman of Municipalities. Gentleman from Lafayette, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Introduction out of order, please.
You're recognized.
You keep skipping over me with all these intros out of order, but I'd like to turn your attention to the South Gallery and introduce my mayor, Mayor of Oxford, Mayor Robin Tannehill. Welcome.
Welcome, Mayor. Mr. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to go to item number 4 on today's general calendar, Senate Bill 2526, and make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're recognized to explain the bill, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, Senate Bill 2526 is a companion bill to a House bill that we passed out. It simply allows any municipality that is in the Pat Harrison Waterway District area in the counties that are members of the Pat Harrison Water District. It just allows the municipalities to join that district. And that's the explanation of the bill.
Questions on the bill? Don't see any, gentlemen.
Move final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open the machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 107 yeas, 10 nays, the bill passes. Next item, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to go to number 5, Senate Bill 2839. Make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended. The bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're recognized to explain the bill, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 2839 is addressing what is commonly called or referred to as a PID. That's a improvement district, public improvement district that's usually takes place in your larger municipalities throughout the state. And what a developer will do if that developer is coming in to either do a commercial development or a residential type development, that investor will come in and put a lot of the infrastructure down, maybe sidewalks, maybe curbing, could be streets. And they do that and sell bonds to do that, the developer does. But then when they sell a lot, whether it's to McDonald's or Foot Locker or Bass Pro, or whatever development comes in there, that cost of the infrastructure for that particular area is added to the cost of the lot itself. And that's how the developer recoups their money for the infrastructure. And there's a board that's over this PID, and they are responsible for making the decisions and that kind of thing. Well, when a development is finished and the developer moves on, sometimes there are issues that need some assistance or needs to be addressed by the municipality. And because that is not on right-of-way and it's not on public property, the municipalities do not have legal authority to go in and work on an issue. And I'll give you an example. There may be a retention pond catching drainage from a heavy rainfall or something like that. And if there is a leak in that retention pond or it's causing a health hazard or whatever, the city has no authority to go in and improve or repair that particular area. And that's just an example. This bill would simply allow a municipality, if the Public Improvement District Board has become defunct and is no longer managing that property or managing that development district, it allows the municipality at their choosing to go in and correct a problem if they so need to or desire to. And that's a explanation of the bill, Mr. Speaker. I'll entertain any questions.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman, you yield.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me the difference in this public improvement district from Central Mississippi Planning District?
Well, Central Mississippi Planning District they are in the business of applying for grants and loans for public entities.
Correct.
This is a developer that is developing a particular project, whether it be a residential project or a commercial project.
Okay. Also, why, since this is a developer and he's developing public land, why would it need a board to oversee what it does?
He's not developing public land. He's developing private property.
So again, why would they need a board? I'm just curious.
Because my understanding is the way that this PID is set up in state law, you have to have a board to oversee the funds that come in to overlay or make the streets or the curbing or the sidewalks. Metro Center out here is another good example. One of our committee members brought up that is technically not
correct.
City property.
Right, it's private ownership.
That's correct, yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Zuber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate and understand the bill, and I like what you're trying to do, but I have two questions. Is there any population limitation on which cities can use this?
No, sir.
Okay, my second question is...
If you've got something to throw, we'll throw it at the gentleman between us here.
My second question, Mr. Chairman, is how is the board created? In other words, if they're not fulfilling their responsibilities, how come the mayor or the city council cannot go in and reappoint those board members?
To my understanding, gentlemen, the mayor and city councilor, and I may be incorrect here, I do not know who appoints that board. I do not know who that board, how it's created. I don't know that the city has anything to do with the appointment of that board. I just know a lot of times when a development is completed or years after it is completed, your appointed board either dissolves or goes away, and there's not really anybody for the city to contact with.
So the board would be dissolved before its responsibilities were fulfilled?
Well, no, sir. It's after, and I'm back to the Metro Center, something that's been there for many, many, many years, maybe decades, is the problem. We're trying to solve where it's not a recent development. It is a development that took place many years ago.
Mr. Chairman, can you find that information out for me, please?
I will check on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from DeSoto, Mr. Criswell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm a little bit concerned of this reading through here. These PIDs, if we now then, basically we're expanding some of their authority to the municipality, that when you're saying when this PID doesn't do its job or whenever it has finished its work, now then you're given the ability to the municipality to continue the work. Is that correct?
No, sir. The development, this will be after the development is completed. The development has taken place. And that board, I don't know if they have a time limited. I don't know if the appointees have term limits or whatever. But we're talking about something that years after the development took place, and you may have an issue that the municipality needs to correct either due to public safety or hazard or whatever. This would just allow that municipality to go on the property that's technically not municipal property and it's not on the right of way, but they can go in there and correct a drainage issue or something that they feel they need to do.
And so does the municipality then assume all of the abilities? Because if you look through here, I'm looking through on line 230, somewhere in there, all the abilities that this PID has to borrow money, to accept gifts, all of that now then is expanded to the city in order for them to complete this after these years later and for this project or to support the project?
Gentlemen, that's not my understanding of the bill. Now, it could be written to the point where it does do that. I don't think that is the intent. The intent is just to allow that municipality to go in and correct a problem, not to sell additional bonds or anything like that, because it still remains private property. It does not become municipal property. It just allows that municipality to go in and correct a problem.
I guess the reason I'm asking this is because everywhere where it says the board, it adds or municipality. So I'm assuming now then the municipalities are assuming and have all of the authority that we're giving these PIDs.
Yes.
So now then we're giving them all of this authority, because if they say the PID's not doing the job we want, now then the municipality is going to go in and assume all of this power to do all of it. And one of those even is eminent domain. And I guess a little bit of my concern on that, and my question is, if we're given this, and this is private entities, we have already given, and now then we're giving the municipalities eminent domain authority to take property for a private entity. How does that coincide with our constitutional amendment that says we can't do that?
You've got a very good point, gentlemen. There again, I'm not sure that was the intent of this law. You bring up a very good point in that fact. Stand by 1 second. Gentlemen, you are correct. The council does advise that it does give the municipality that authority. Once again, reiterate, I don't believe that was the intent. I think the intent is just trying to allow them the opportunity to go in and correct a problem. There may be some more work, some tweaking that needs to be done to this bill. This is, like I stated, a Senate bill. We did not have a companion bill in the House, so I'm just trying to help take care of an issue that is going on right now.
Right, but if we pass this today, this moves on and it's out of our hand, and whatever is not solved is not solved.
Gentlemen, I would entertain the idea of laying it on the table, subject to call, if you want to try and get together and work out some type of an amendment or something on it.
I would be happy to do that. Mr. Speaker, I have a motion at the proper time.
State your motion, gentlemen.
Motion is to lay this bill on the table, subject to call.
Well, done this now.
Gentleman's motion is to lay the bill on the table, subject to call.
I have no problem with that, Mr. Speaker.
If you favor the gentleman's motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Chairman of Public Property.
We'd like to pass on items 6, 7, 8, and 9 and ask that they retain their place on the calendar.
Yes, sir, we will do that. Chairman of Public Health, Smith. County Affairs. You recognize, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to go to item number 17 on today's calendar. Make sure I'm right. Senate Bill 2392. Call it up, make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended. The bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. You recognize, gentlemen. I believe you have an
amendment.
You have an amendment?
Yes. Ready for it now?
Now, you have a strike all amendment that's here. Is that?
No, this is an amendment to the strike all.
This is an amendment to the strike all.
Yes.
You're recognized to explain the amendment to the strike all.
Okay. We do have a strike all, and the amendment simply removes the reverse repealer from the strike all.
Questions on the amendment? Don't see any.
Okay.
If you favor Amendment 1 to the strike all, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment's adopted, gentlemen.
All right, thank you. We're on a strike all.
You're recognized now to explain the strike all.
Thank you. The strike all to Senate Bill 2392 creates a ledger, a registry in the Chancellor Clerk's office of delinquent garbage bills. This is for the benefit of disclosure when a realtor is doing a title search, that there will be a ledger that they can go to, electronic or a physical book, so that we can find out if there's a garbage lien against the property, and that's what the bill does. If there are no questions, I move final passage.
Questions on the strike all? Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Banks. Anything further on the strike all, gentlemen? If you favor adoption of the strike all amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Anything further, gentlemen?
Final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 101 yeas, 11 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, item 18, Senate Bill 2734. Call it up, make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time and placed on final passage. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're recognized, gentlemen.
We do have a committee sub. Strike all, I'm sorry. We do have a committee strike all.
You're recognized to explain the strike off.
Okay. What we did here, this was started out as a companion bill to exempt the boards of supervisors from the election year fiscal constraints on ARPA funds. We also included that any matching monies for ARPA funds shall be excluded from that election year fiscal constraints. So you want to explain what the election year is? In an election year, the County Board of Supervisors is not allowed to expend more than 1/4 of their budget in the last quarter of the year, so they can't paint the town black and get themselves reelected. If there are no questions, I'll move final passage.
Questions on the bill? On the strike all? I don't see any. If you favor the strike all, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Strike all is adopted. Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Nothing further. Move final adoption.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines, for what purpose?
Question, Mr. Speaker.
You're recognized.
Gentleman, you.
Yes.
I didn't hear you clearly. So this bill will not allow supervisors to do a bunch of work at the end of the year to increase their chance to be reelected. That's what this bill does.
What this bill does is allow them to expend. We have a timeline on, excuse me, we have a timeline on ARPA funds. So we need to push these funds out. So we're exempting the ARPA funds from the normal election year fiscal constraints. We're also allowing them to exempt any matching funds that they have to draw down these ARPA funds or get these projects going.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't see any further questions, gentlemen. He moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Is everyone voted? Is everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 113 yeas, 5 nays, the bill passes. Forestry. Pass. Forestry passes. Tourism passes. Chairman, Appropriations. We will go back to the appropriations calendar. I believe the Chairman of Appropriations wants to take up this item on his calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies of the House, let's go to the appropriations calendar. Item number 1, House Bill 1721. Bring it up and recognize the gentleman from Montgomery to explain the bill.
You make the usual motion, gentlemen. Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time and placed on final passage. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentleman from Montgomery is recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a strike-all amendment. I move adoption of the strike-all.
You want to explain the strike-all first, gentlemen?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I will. Ladies and gentlemen, the intent of this bill, if you look, item number 1 on the appropriations calendar, is for renovation or in an effort to establish a burn center in the state of Mississippi, in which we currently do not have. The strike-all amendment, simply in section 1, I'll read that to you. The following sum, or so much as it may be necessary, is appropriated out of any money in the coronavirus state fiscal recovery lost revenue fund not otherwise appropriated to the State Department of Health for the purpose of providing funding to the Mississippi Baptist Medical Center in Jackson, Mississippi, to establish a burn center or unit at the medical center for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. Again, this has no dollars in it. It is simply a vehicle to establish a burn center in the state, and it will be at the Mississippi Baptist Medical Center. And that's an explanation of the strike all, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Lawrence, Mr. Evans.
I had a question on the bill, but I could ask it now too, Speaker. Thank you. Gentleman Yield,
Yes.
do you have any type of time frame when this burn center will be up and operating?
No, sir, I don't.
No idea at all?
I'm assuming they're going to want to move forward with it as quickly as they can.
Well, I certainly would presume that with you, but we don't know if it'll be 6 months or 6 years.
Well, actually, these funds, or any that are appropriated, will actually go to the Department of Health. And they will actually act as a pass-through entity for the Baptist Medical Center. Any funds so they don't get any funding unless they're moving forward with it.
I'm just interested in getting it going as fast as we can, because correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that'll be the only burn center in the state, won't it?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Brown.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman Yield,
Yes, gentlemen.
I'm a little confused. The question is, you have University of Mississippi Medical Center as far as the appropriation is concerned, but you said the burn center is going to be located at the Baptist. Give me the explanation on that.
Sure. This strike all amendment changes it from UMMC to the Baptist Medical Center.
Thank you so much.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman Yield.
For a friendly question, yes, sir.
Outstanding. Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for doing this. Secondly, were you aware that the doctor that has been performing all of the issues around burn care since Joseph has still left is at Baptist Hospital?
No, I'm not aware of any of the physicians that's currently providing the care there.
Okay, so there is a doctor who's been providing all those services, and he has wanted to continue to do so, and too much at his own peril. Gentlemen, will this allow them to continue to work and providing the level of care they've been able to do over the last year and a half?
That's the intention, gentlemen, is to give them to be the state's only burn center.
Thank you, gentlemen. This is a good piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Madison, Mr. Blackman.
Gentleman Yale.
Yes.
What happened at UMMC? I've been told that they closed the burn center.
Now, I can't answer that. UMMC, I don't believe, actually had a burn center. They have treated burn patients there.
Oh, so it was not actually a burn center?
That's correct.
They stopped accepting patients, is that it?
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's my understanding.
Was it because of money or what?
Now, that I don't know. I don't know their reason for not having it.
Lady from Hines, Ms. Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the gentleman yield.
Yes, lady.
Gentlemen, it's my understanding that there is a law already in place that says that if there is no burn center, we know the burn center at Merritt closed because of various circumstances. But the law states that if there is no burn center in the state, then it automatically defers to UMMC to have the burn center. Is that correct?
I don't know, lady. You're telling me the law. I'm not aware of it, but if you say so.
So that's my understanding. So with this amendment, then this would take away resources that UMMC needs to, and they've already agreed to do the burn center by way of, they've started the process. They've already released it to the public that they are going to be establishing a burn center. So this would take away those resources and give it to Baptist?
They have not. They don't have an official burn center. They have been treating burn patients, but we have been sending severe burn patients out of state also.
So why do we need the switch from UMMC to Baptist if they are indeed treating burn patients?
It's my understanding that when there was some discussion as to Mississippi or helping Mississippi with a burn center, that the Baptist came forward wanting to do this, and UMMC did not come forward wanting to do this only until such time as the Baptist showed an interest in it. It's my understanding.
So has UMMC decided that they don't want to do the burn center anymore?
I think it's because the Baptist showed an interest in doing it that they're going to be, they've stepped up to the plate, is my understanding, and want to introduce and have and B, the state burn center, that we're moving forward with this.
So how much is Baptist asking for?
There's no money in the bill. It's just a vehicle to keep it alive so that we can establish a burn care center in Mississippi.
Do we know how much it's going to cost for Baptist to establish a burn center?
I mean, no, again, this is just a vehicle that's keeping it alive. There's no money in it, so no, I don't know the amount. You know,
Would you agree-
would you say 6 million, 12 million, 20
Well,
million?
what I've heard is that it's going to cost twice as much to establish a burn center at Baptist than it would at UMMC. But my next question is that I think UMMC has a lot of the specialists and the expertise necessary to care for trauma 1 patients versus Baptist. I think Baptist is a great hospital. You know, I don't have no problem with Baptist, but I'm just saying, doesn't UMMC already have the capacity to be able to treat burn patients? Why do we want to give that to Baptist?
They asked for it. I mean, they're the ones that they're wanting to put in a burn center.
I can't hear. I'm sorry.
They have come up, they've stepped up and said, we want to put in a burn unit here. UMMC has been treating them, but they don't have what is recognized as a burn center.
Did UMMC say that they don't want it?
They did.
They did say they don't want it.
Initially.
Oh, initially. Like recently?
Initially. This year.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, time's expired on amendment.
Move adoption.
Gentleman moves adoption of strike all amendment number 1. If you favor that amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. House is not voting. The House is not voting. If you favor the strike all amendment, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Move adoption.
Gentlemen, I see you've got a few more questions. You yield for questions? Gentleman yields floor. We got to change the short title. It's going to take, you got it? We're good. Open machine, Madam Clerk. Question recurs on the adoption of House Bill 1721. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 102 yeas, 11 nays, the bill passes. We've gone through the calendar, that's all. Any announcements by the clerk's office? Chairman of Ways and Means have an item he wishes to take up. He passes. Any chairman have an item they wish to take up? We've gone through the calendar. Don't see any. So we in or out, gentlemen? Ways and Means wishes to take up an item.
Pardon me for just 1 second.
Vice Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to call up Senate Bill 2647 and recognize the gentleman from Wayne to handle the bill.
Gentlemen, you make the usual motion. Gentleman who calls the bill up moves the rules be suspended. The bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentleman, you're recognized to explain the bill.
We've got a
Explain the
strike all.
strike all.
The strike all to Senate Bill 2647, we're just inserting the language that we passed last week in House Bill 773. There is a little bit of cleanup in it that just removed some inconsistencies between code sections, and we also removed a reverse repealer and made the bill effective upon passage. Be glad to yield for any questions.
Questions on the strike all? Gentleman from Lowndes, for what purpose? He passes. Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines, he's not at his desk. I don't see any questions on the strike all. If you favor the adoption of the strike all amendment 1, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Strike all is adopted. Anything further on the bill, gentlemen?
Move final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open the machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 108 yeas, 6 nays, the bill passes. Announcements, Madam Clerk.
Workforce Development will meet after adjournment in room 401A. Banking will meet after adjournment in 402. Energy will meet 10 minutes after adjournment in 103. Universities and colleges will meet 20 minutes after adjournment in 204. On tomorrow, Judiciary B will meet at 9 and 113. Corrections will meet immediately after the Judiciary B committee meeting at 9 and 113. Public Utilities will meet at 9 and 204. Drug Policy will meet at 11 and 103. Apportionment and Elections will meet at 1 and 401A. Accountability, Efficiency, and Transparency will meet tomorrow after adjournment in 103.
Gentleman from Tate, Mr. Lamar, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I'd like to go to the motion to reconsider calendar very quick and move to table 1671.
Chairman moves to table item number 2 on the motion to reconsider calendar, House Bill 1671. Those opposed have 5 minutes. Our board's lit up, maybe with announcements. Does any member wish to speak against the motion to table? Don't see any. If you favor the gentleman's motion to table, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Gentleman from Forest, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. County Affairs will meet 1 minute after adjournment today.
Gentleman from Tunica, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to get permission to change my vote. It was yesterday's calendar. House Bill 1733 is the amendment. I want to change from yes to no.
Is there objection? Don't hear any. Change the gentleman's vote. Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Zuber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just an announcement for the members. The National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors will have their reception tonight, Mr. Speaker, at 5 p.m. at the Iron Horse Grill.
Gentleman from Knoxville, Mr. Mickens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to reiterate that correction was meet on tomorrow at 9 a.m. in room 113, a meeting following the Judd B meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, gentleman. Gentleman from Choctaw, Mr. Hood.
Adjourn in memory, Mr. Speaker.
You're recognized.
I'd like to adjourn in memory of Leslie Boatner, who passed away on February the 20th this past Monday at the age of 41. She battled cancer with dignity and grace. Please keep her 5 children, husband, and family members in your prayers during this difficult time.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll do that. Gentleman from Simpson, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I just want to make the answer, Portsmouth elections will not meet tomorrow.
Any further announcements by any member? Don't see any. I recognize the gentleman from Tibaha, Mr. Robertson, for the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move this House stand adjourned until 2 o'clock tomorrow.
You've heard the gentleman's motion. Motion is the House will stand adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. If you favor the gentleman's motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The House is adjourned till 2 p.m. tomorrow.